Hello, so good evening. Welcome to our day two of our programming session. And today we are going to focus on a number of things, but it's still the basics. Okay, today I'm going to go through the VS Code, the software, the Visual Studio Code software, how to use it, how to set it up, uh, what problems are you likely to face, and how to go around these problems. Then I'm going to show you the Python interpreter. I think I sent links in the formal material I sent you, the zero slides PDF I sent you. But then I'll just still go over it. So go over Python interpreter. Um, Now keep your comments coming. If you have any question, put it in your comments. I have someone taking charge of that. So when it gets to the question and answer sessions, I'll come in to um, answer all your questions. That is in the chat. Okay. And if you know an answer to someone's question, you can also reply to the person, and it becomes interactive and keeps on going. Okay. So we have looking at the Visual Studio Code, the Python interpreter, and we also look at how to create a HackerRank account and how the project is going to be like in HackerRank. Okay, so then how do we create a HackerRank account and how is the project going to be like in okay it's variables, okay, and data types. So we are going to talk about data types in Python. Then we'll also talk about what variables. Okay. Then yes, so with data types and variables, then that will be it for today. We are not going to learn too much. We're just going to touch on the basics. I know some of you know some Python here and there, and you would like us to start something serious. But trust me, a time is going to come. Um, the project I'm going to give you, you have to really think. So I would say that all the energy, keep it for the future. We are getting there small, small, especially after our exams, when we enter the second phase. That's going to be very serious and very late. Like you will sit down for hours to crack your brain to solve a problem. So it's ahead of you. We are definitely going to get there. And secondly, to please try and reduce the stress you are giving me, because some of you, the stress alone is where are you guys? I'm seeing only few people online. Okay, so my background is quite noisy. So let me go straight to the point. So let us start with Visual Studio Code. Okay, so let me take this as Visual Studio Code. I'm coming. Let me open a new Visual Studio Code interface. Okay, so for most of you, when you launch Visual Studio Code for the first time, this is what you might see. You may or may not see this. Okay, you might see this interface here, and from here you see some welcome tab, new file, open folder, the clone GitHub and connect to. Those are extensions I've added, but basically the first three of them you see them. Then the recent codes you've been working on, you also see them here. Then some walkthroughs, you also see them here. So the first and foremost, for most of you, when you installed Visual Studio Code, as through my video, you realize that you were supposed to come here to extension and type Python. Okay. Now some of you will see this error fetching. Anytime you see the error, it means that your network is not strong enough. Okay. But without the error, it's supposed to come. So this extension, which is by Microsoft, you install it. Okay. So you install it and you get to use it. Okay. So there are a lot of them here. Sometimes you install it with a debugger. Okay. So sometimes when you're installing Python, by default the debugger also gets installed, so no need to worry about that. Now if now some of you might not know whether you've done this or not. You don't really know, but don't worry if you don't know. Okay, so let me explain the tabs here. So let me close this one. Now when I close this, the whole page becomes blank. So sometimes some of you open your VS Code and you see this, just a blank VS Code. Now the first sign here, the button here, is called Explorer. Okay, so when you click on it, it asks you to open a folder. Okay, just like you have this Explorer. Okay, this is your Explorer, File Explorer. Okay, so your File Explorer opens up folders for you. The same File Explorer can be found here. Okay, so let's say I want to write a code onto my desktop. Let's say here I want to put a code here onto my desktop. Okay, now I don't need to, I can come here and go to new, and maybe, or I can open my Python interpreter and create a file and save it here. Or you can just open your VS Code, come to your Explorer and say open folder. So when you open folder, you have to select the folder you want to work with. Okay, so I want to work on the desktop, and on the desktop I want to, for me I have let me create another folder. Let's say new, then say let me call it py4Eng, for engineering codes. Okay, so then once I create this folder and I select this folder and I click on select folder, what I have here on this left hand side is actually the folder. Anything I create in here will appear inside the folder. So if you come here, you see the folder has been created, Py for engineering code, and as it stands now, the folder is virtually empty. Okay, so there's nothing inside the folder. So when I go to my VS Code, I can say, now you see this button here, it means new file. Okay, this one means new folder. This one means what? Refresh. Then this one means collapse. Okay, so you can click on new file, or you can click on new file here. Okay, let me show you. This is the easiest method. You can do it this way, but this is the easiest. So when you click on new file here, then you type the name of your file. So let me call it day1 underscore code1. Let me just say. Then I put the extension .py. I'm going to write a Python file, so I put an extension and I press enter. And by default, it gets opened. Okay. So if you go back to that folder, you see that the Python file has been created inside the folder. I could have created it directly from here. New, then okay, I don't have the Python file extension. Or you can just open and create and save it here. Okay, so you can, whatever you create here appears in the folder. I can also use this button, the one next to it, to create a folder. So maybe this folder, I'm going to call it maybe subcodes. Okay, you don't need to add an extension .py because it's a folder you are creating. Okay, for folders don't have extensions. So you see folders come along with this sign. So it means that I've created a folder. Now if you go back to, you realize I've created a folder called what? Subcodes. I've created a Python file called what? It means that this Python I click, it opens. You can create a file outside the folder. Let me say day1 code2.py. I've created another Python file, but this one is outside the folder. So realize that this faint line over there, let me zoom in if you can't see. The faint line here is not covering this, so it's not a subset of the folder. When I close the folder, you see this one is outside. Let me create some more. Wait. So I'm going to create it as, let me close the folder. I'm going to create it as let's say day1 code3. Okay, so code3.py. and now you have two files and folders inside your Visual Studio Code, but it's not compulsory to create a folder. Okay, and so let me bring this one out, just copy and drag, then let me right click on this, I delete my folder. Okay, if you want to rename, you can right click, you come to rename, then you rename. Okay, so I have different folders. Okay, but none of them, I've not written any code in them. Okay, so let me open the one code one. Okay, so we've opened the one code one, and we can now start typing our code. Let me just say print hello. Okay, that's all. Print hello. So that is my code for today. So print hello. And once you type in your Python code, this play sign here means run the Python file. Okay. Now, when you say run Python file, it means it should run this code for you. But if you don't see this symbol here, this play symbol here, then it means that your extension has not been installed yet. So if this symbol is not appearing, go back here and type Python and type Python. Okay, error while fetching extension. I think my internet. So when you type Python, make sure that it has been installed. Once it gets installed and you come back to your code, you should see this play symbol here. Without the Python extension being installed, this play symbol wouldn't appear and you won't be able to run it. Okay, so take note of that. So if you are not seeing it, just install the extension and it should appear. Sometimes you have to close it and open it again, then it should appear. Okay, so for now, um, let me take in some questions from the chat. Okay, so those using mobile phones, for those using Android, I think for Android users, we are using this app. We call it Pydroid. Okay, Pydroid 3, and for iPhone users, we are using Python. Yes, the Python app. But recently, some people told me that this is paid, like you need to pay to use it. So we are still searching for any Python app that helps you to do this. Now, for those using Pydroid, um, okay. So that being answered, let me see if there are more comments. So please keep your questions coming in your comments. Okay. Mark Cosby, is it Mark Cosby or something? Yes. So get you can send your question in there. So this is how we write our codes. Then let me run it so that you see. So when I run it, a command opens down here. We call it terminal, or an interface opens down here, which we call terminal. Okay. Sometimes some of your terminal may be on problem. So when you run it, you don't see anything. It comes to problem. You don't see it. Or sometimes it comes to output, which is blank. You click on terminal, and the terminal will show you a result. We are saying print hello, so you see hello here. Now this one you see is the file path. So C, users, Ujam, desktop, and Python engineering codes. Then the location of the file, the location of the Python program, then the location of the file we are running, then the output of the file. Okay, so this line you always see it. Forget about it. You always see it. If you want to close it, you can close it here, or you can delete the terminal. You call it kill terminal. So when you kill the terminal, it deletes everything from here. And when you run it again, it opens up the terminal and run your code. So this is what we get. We can say that maybe print, let's say I love, let's say KNUST engineering programs. Okay, so let me just say, then maybe let's print happy Independence Day. Happy Independence Day. Then we run it. So we realize that these are the outputs. So hello, I love KNUST engineering programs. Happy Independence Day. So all these things are what outputs from running the file. Okay. Now when I press this hide panel, it only hides it temporarily. Now when I run it again, you realize that the old output here, which I selected, is still there, and the new result I got is here. But when you kill the terminal and you run it, you lose the old output, okay? So you only see the new one. You lose all the ones you've run before, but the hide one only it keeps it for you. When you run it, you can get back to the old results you get and the new results you are having. Okay, so that's for the interface with the Visual Studio Code. Okay, now if you want to open a different folder, okay, maybe you want to write your code into a different folder, then in that sense, you come to File, then you say Open Folder. Okay, Open Folder or Open Recent. So Open Recent, these are the recent folders we've been dealing with. Then you can say save as save, just like the normal Word interface. Okay, so we can open another folder, then you select another folder where you want to work. Maybe I want to select this folder, I select it, the whole interfaces changes. Okay, so the interfaces changes to the new one here. Okay, this is a different project I was working on before, I think so, yes, something like that. So it's a simple game. Maybe I'll give it to you as your project someday. Okay, so let me close the file explorer. So Visual Studio Code has been closed. Now let us look at the Python interpreter itself. So let me search for Python. Now we have the Python IDLE. Okay, the Python IDLE. Let me. This is the old one. Now the Python 3.12 is what we are using, which is the latest. The Python 3.11, I think I used to have it, but I've uninstalled it. So when you click on the Python 3.12, it opens this interface for you. This interface is just simply the Python interpreter. In here, any command you type, you get the output directly. Okay, so when I type, let's just say print hello, just as I typed before. Okay, I get the hello. When I type print I love engineering, okay, I love engineering, I get I love engineering. Okay, so you realize that this is the Python interpreter and it executes every code you type. You don't need to click somewhere to run it or something. So we'll be using this one later. Okay, but then another one we have to is the IDLE. Once you install the Python, it comes along with the IDLE. So when you run the IDLE, this is how it looks. So let me put them side by side. Okay, so realize that the IDLE and the Python interpreter are similar. See all these things here, Python 3 point whatever it is, they're the same thing you see here. Okay, they are similar. This one also has the chevron prompt, this one also has the chevron prompt. So when I type print hello, I get my result. But here you could see that there's color differences. Okay, but for here everything is just black and white, but here there is color differences. Now this colors helps us to understand the code better. Okay, now take a look at this. When I say print quotation print, okay, so realize that this print is should I say violet? let's say violet, something like a violet, yes, but not too deep. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong with the color. Then this one is green, which is the same print, and this one is blue, which is also another print word. Now, this color simply tells us that this print we are seeing and this print we are seeing are not the same thing. They are different. Uh, in future, I'll show you data types and variables. That's what you're going to learn today, and I'll do well to show it to you. But as it stands now, you should understand that the color helps us to know that this and that may have the same name, but may be doing something different, or they might represent different things. So the IDLE is just like the interpreter, only that the extra thing the IDLE comes with is this one: file, edit, shell, debug, options, windows, and help. So when you click on file, you are allowed to create a new file. Okay, so I can create a new file which opens another uh, box for me. So I can type here print hello. Okay, then I can type here maybe print I love engineering. Okay, then I can type maybe print let me say KNUST, whatever it is. So this becomes a file. Once I'm done, I click here to save. Okay, save file. Then I can go straight forward and go to my desktop and go to the folder I created, which is py4Engineering code. Okay, with my py4Engineering code, maybe I can name it maybe testing. Okay, then I save it. Now this has been saved inside that folder. Now since it has been saved inside the folder, I can run it by clicking run here and clicking this one. So you realize that it opens this and run it for me. Okay, so similarly, I could have just typed these things here. These things, if you type them here, print hello. Once you finish typing the command, it runs the code for you. But here, when I finished typing, it didn't run the code until I clicked run. So sometimes you may want to write your code before you run it. Okay, not like when you write every line, the computer should run it for you. Then you say print I love engineering. Okay, I love engineering. Then it runs it for you. Then you say print KNUST. So here, anytime you write a code, it runs it automatically. Here, when you write a code, it doesn't run it until you click run. Okay. So when I save this file, and I send you this file, and you double click on this file, and you have Python installed, then it will run. It will run for you and to do the work you wanted it to do. Okay, so that's the difference between the Python interpreter and the Python IDLE. IDLE simply means integrated development for what? Learning environment. Okay, so it's an environment for learning. We could have used this to the Python class. We could have used this straightforward, but the reason why we use this is that when you want to write a new let me say when you want to write a command, let me just add it to this code. Let me say print. Realize that it does autocomplete for us, so we can quickly do that. Okay, so then say hello without having to waste time because it does autocomplete for us. Okay, so that will save you a lot of time and will help in debugging. Okay, so that's why we use that. So now that I've shown you those softwares that we'll be using, I'm going forward to show you I think we've talked about draw.io already. Okay, so I want to assume that you guys are still hearing me. So I'm going on with the video. Then, so let's fast forward and go ahead with today's lesson. So I'm going to go straight to the point and go for today's lesson. So for today's lesson, let me open folder. Then opening the folder, I go to desktop. Then I select Python for engineering. I select it. Okay. So for today's lesson, we are going to learn about variables and data types. Okay. So we are going to learn about variables and data types. Okay. Now, before we start, let's start with data types. Okay. Data types. Now, when you talk about data type, a data type is simply data type or the type of data you are working with. Now, let us take the human body for example. Okay. So, as a human being, there are certain data you receive. Okay. There are certain data you receive. Okay. And the data can be um, in a form of visual, like what you see, like video, pictures. Yes, video and pictures. That's a visual kind of data. Okay. So we'll classify videos and pictures as what? A visual data, or maybe holograms and whatever it is as visual data. Okay. Then if you talk about music, sound, voices, noise, screaming, all those kind of data, we can classify it as what? Sound kind of data. Okay, so that's the type of data. It's a sound type of data. And we have visual type of data. Then we can classify things we feel. Like it could be a pinch, which is very painful, or let's say a tickling, or whatever it is. It's also kind of data. Okay, and we can have smell, whether or choking smell or whatever it is. There's a smell kind of data. Okay, that's the type of data we are dealing with. Okay, so it's very important we understand which kind of data we are dealing with. So in Python programming, there are a lot of data types. Okay, there are numerous data types in Python programming, but you have to be able to understand which data type you are working with and be able to work with them. Okay, so here I'm going to show you a few of these Python data types, and the most fundamental of them is so in Python data types, let's look at this one. First, we have strings. Okay, so when you talk about strings, you are simply referring to um, anything. Okay, any character on your keyboard. Okay, any character on your keyboard that start from A to Z. Okay, let me add small letter A so that people don't think it's not part. So A to Z, it could be 1 2 3 to 99. So let me just say 0 1 2 3 9. Any combination of them could be question mark, full stop, dollar sign, percent sign. It could be anything as long as they are put in quotes. Okay, so basically when you talk about a Python string or a string kind of data, you're referring to anything in quotes. Let me give an example. I can have this. my name is, let's say Uja. Let me just say something like that. Now this means that this is a string kind of data. Okay, this is a string. So the computer recognizes it as a string. If you type something like this, my name is Uja. This symbols means that that's wrong. The Python doesn't know what you are referring to. Okay, but when you put it in quotes, then it becomes a string. Even you can have a number, like let's say 24 is a number, right? But when you put your 24 in quotes, it becomes a string. So you see that all the strings have the same color. Now, the color means that they are the same. If they have the same color, it means that they're the same data type or the same kind of structure. Okay. So if you have the same colors, because sometimes when you change your theme, it can sometimes change the colors. Okay, so the fact that it's green here doesn't mean it will appear green on your computer. I can go to settings, go to where is it, profile settings, yes, go to settings, then I can go to theme, user settings, where is it, ouch, let me see. Oh yes, theme is just here. So color theme, okay, you can select any of them. This, let me select the someone that's the ones that are very fanciful. I think that one pro will be cool. Okay, that one pro didn't change much. Some of them you can change your theme, but the themes you have to download some of them. Some of them you have to download them. Sublime text theme, yes. So this one could be another theme. Okay, still green. Let me use another theme that's, let me see. Oh, I'm coming. Let me change the theme too. I want the colors to change. Okay. Let me think. I think this one will do. Yes. So here the colors have changed. Okay. So you realize that when I change my theme, I change the colors. But still, all strings will have the same color according to the theme. Okay. So I can have 0.0 is a string. I can have 19.75, 76.76, it's also a string, okay, because it has quotation marks around it. Now, when you remove the quotation marks, they are no longer strings. So what is a string? A string is any set of characters enclosed in a quotation mark. A string is any set of characters. So let me say a string is any set of characters enclosed in a quotation mark. Okay, so that is a string, simply. Now, sometimes it might not be single quotes, okay? It could be single quotes, it could be double quotes, it could be triple quotes. Okay, so sometimes you can do something like this. Single quotes, oh, I love Africa, okay? Now, this is also a string, okay? Enclosed in a single quote. I can have this in a triple quote, okay? Where I say, I love Africa, okay? So let me tell you the difference between the three of them. Those with double quotes, okay, let me do one for this single quotes, double quotes, okay, single quote, double quotes, and triple quotes. Now for single quotes, okay, for single quotes, when you're using single quote, it becomes difficult to use apostrophe. Okay, like for example, maybe you want to type something like we've we've seen we've seen the light, whatever it is. Because of this weave, the single quote up there, it's going to think that you've ended the string here, and therefore whatever follows whatever follows is not a string. Okay, so that's what it's thinking. It's thinking this is a string because a single quote starts and a single quote ends. So you get a problem when you're putting apostrophes in a single quotes. But if I'm to repeat similar for here, we've seen the light. Okay, now I don't get the same problem here because I'm using double quotes here. So single quotes cannot close a double quote. Okay, so when you use double quotes, you are being allowed to be able to put in apostrophes and things like that. But for single quotes, when you put in apostrophe, it becomes a problem. But I can put in a double quote though, and it still works. As long as the quotations are not interrupted by similar text within the sentence you are typing, then it's fine. But nobody writes with a double quote, okay? Which is grammatically, it doesn't make sense. So maybe this one you might want to type it straightforward. We have seen the light, okay? So with a triple quote, I've forgotten, there's a way we call it. But one advantage of a triple quote is that the way you type it is the way it appears, okay? The way you type it is the way it appears. So I can go to the next line. Then let me say maybe Africa is my home. Then let me just put something like it's good to be an African. Let me just say. Now I can type multiple lines with a triple quote, but with a double quote, I'm not allowed to do so. If you try to type multiple lines, like let's say send this one to the next line, you have problems with a double quote. So for triple quotes, you can type a whole essay inside and you are fine. It doesn't affect the structure. So if you need to type a long essay or a very long text with paragraphs and things, you use a triple quote. It's best to use a triple quote. But if you want to type just one sentence, one line, you can use this. Or you can use a backslash n. Now the backslash n you see here, okay, the backslash n you see here simply means that go to the next line. Okay, so this is what you have in your code, but the user will see it differently. Now later I'll demonstrate that to you. But for double quotes, you can only type it in one straight line. For triple quotes, you can type in paragraphs and indentations and whatever you have. Okay, but for single line quotes, for double quotes and single quotes, this is how it appears. For single quotes, it's difficult to put in apostrophe. For double line quotes, you can put in apostrophe, but you can't type in multiple lines. For triple quotes, you can type in multiple lines and paragraphs and apostrophes and everything you want to do. Okay, so this is basically the structure of a string. Later on, we'll go into details. Our next meeting is going to focus on strings. We're going to learn strings into details, like details. So let me move on to other data types. So the next data type we're going to talk about is integers. Okay. Now, when you say an integer, you're referring to what? A positive or negative whole number. A positive or negative whole number. So any number from negative infinity. So from negative infinity to positive infinity, including 0, are integers. Okay, but they should be whole numbers. They shouldn't be decimals. Okay, so let me give you an example of integers. So we can have 9 is an integer. Okay, 10 is an integer. 1 is an integer. Negative 900 is an integer. 889 is an integer. But remember, 6.0 is not an integer. This is not an integer. Okay, we'll learn about floats very soon. So all these are integers. Okay, let me change the thing. It's make my eyes. Let me go back to. Okay, so oh, light. What is this? Okay, let me quickly change my light mode, light mode. Well, sorry, I shouldn't have changed my theme in the first place, but I was just using for an explanation. Okay, Visual Studio dark theme. Okay, so I like this one. So you see this now, you realize that the color for this integers are different, the color for strings are different. Okay, now the ones in quotes, sorry, the so somebody's saying when you type the print hello, it's not working. So just note that um take a screenshot and send to my DM so that I can check it for you. Okay, so with this theme, let me change the theme one more time. I think I've not found what I'm looking for. It's called Atom. Yes, so this is my favorite theme. Okay, so with this we can see that these are integers, so positive and negative whole numbers, they are integers. So the next kind of data we have to talk about, is it recording? Yes, I'm still recording, and I guess I'm live. Okay, excellent connection. Okay, so with the um, integers, floats. Okay, so let me comment it. Floats. So when you talk about floats, you are referring to um, numbers with a decimal point. Okay, numbers with a decimal point. Let me define it that way. So for example, if you say 9.0 is a float, okay, this is not an integer. This is not an integer, but a float. Okay, even though 9.0 is the same as what? 9, it is still not an integer, it's a float. Okay, so 1.0 negative 9.768 is a float. You can have 3.142 is also a float. You can have let's say 100.01 is also a float. Then you can have negative 88.09968 is also a float. So all these ones are what? Floats. Okay, as long as they have the decimal point, that full stop over there, the decimal point in there, it's a float. But it doesn't also mean that 9 is not equal to 9 is always equal to 9.0. So this one, the computer understands that they are equal. 9 is in terms of value is equal to 9.0, but in terms of data type, integers, okay, so let me say integers are not the same. I'm not using equality. Are not the same as what? Floats. They are different data types, but sometimes they can have the same value. Okay, the value of 9 and the value of 9.0 are the same, but 9 is an integer and 9.0 is a float. It's simple and it's straightforward. Okay, so you have to take note of that. So we've discussed about strings, we've discussed about integers, we've discussed about floats, and now there's one more data type I want us to talk about, one basic data type, which is Boolean. Boolean, okay, Boolean data type. Now, Boolean data type simply refers to true and false. Now, take note, the true and false you see here, not truths, true and false. True you see here starts with a capital T. The false you see here starts with what? A capital F. They are not the same as, okay, let me say is different, which is different from true with a small t and false with a lowercase f. Okay, so capital true, capital false, okay, they are Boolean, but small letter true and small letter false, they are not Boolean. Okay, so take note of that. So Boolean is only two. You can just have true, you can just have false. Okay, true, false. There is no other Boolean anywhere. Now, in other programming languages, since you guys are engineering students, I'll mention in MATLAB, true is usually this true is represented as 1. In MATLAB, true is represented as 1. Let me comment it out. Then false is represented as 0. Okay, so in MATLAB, if you ask me, is this matrix equal to the other matrix, it will just show 1 or 0, which is true and false. But in Python, it shows true with a capital T and false with a capital F. Now, if I'm to type true with a small letter, realize that it does the changes for me. But if I insist and I put a small letter, it doesn't know what it is. It is not Boolean. It's not a Boolean data type. Okay, similarly, when I type false, it is not a Boolean data type. Okay, so this true and false are not Boolean. It's true and false, which are Boolean. So these are the 4 main data types I want you guys to know. Okay, now remember that in strings, we use most of the time when you see string, when you see the word str, it means strings. So in Python, you will not see them spelling the full string. You just see str, class str, meaning that it's a string. Okay. For integers, you see int. Okay. For floats, you see floats. Then for Boolean, you see bool. Okay, so these are the 4 major data types I want you to know. So str for strings, int for integers, float, bool for Boolean. Okay, so these are the 4 main data types I want you to know. There are more, so let me introduce you to the more. So more data types. Okay, so we have one data type called lists. Lists, and the data type list in Python is still called lists. And for lists, it has it opens, sorry, it is a data type that begins and ends with a square bracket. Okay, so it begins and ends with a square bracket, and the elements in the list are separated by commas. Okay, So a list begins and ends with a bracket, and the elements inside the list are separated by commas. So now let me show you how to create a list. You start with an open bracket, close bracket, then you can put in your data. Okay, you put in your data in between the brackets, just like you put the words, the letters in between quotation mark. Here you put them in between what? Square brackets. Okay, but then this time around, a list, when you're entering a data into a list, the data must also be a data type. Okay, I cannot just type I love maybe sculpture. I can't type that I love sculpture. Nah, it won't work. Do you get it? You also have to input whatever you put into a list should either be a string, a float, an integer, a boolean, or any other data type. Okay, so this one has to be in quotes. So since this is a string, so I can put in a string into a list. I can put in a number, an integer into a list. I can put in a float, let's say 9.78 into a list. I can put in a boolean. Let's say in a dictionary, let's take a word, let's say